Hey everyone, welcome back to Bizplend Podcast. As you all know, this is the show where we mix real talk, strategy, and a tiny bit of chaos so your business actually works in real life. As always, I'm your host, Sana, and today, listeners, we are jumping into a topic that quietly makes or breaks revenue charts. Not funnels, not fancy tech stacks. What's that? Behavior. Now, we are calling this one as behavioral profit. How leadership behavior drives revenue, productivity, and team performance. Now, here's the truth every company says people are the greatest asset. Then you look inside the culture and you see leaders avoiding tough conversations, burned out teams, missed deadlines, and weird tension every meeting. And that gap between what leaders say and how they actually show up is where money leaks out of the business. So, listeners, we're not talking about theory today. We're talking about how you behave as a leader on a Tuesday afternoon when Slack is blowing up and nothing is going according to the plan. Because that is the moment that impacts revenue more than your latest strategy deck. And to help us unpack this, I have an amazing guest with us. Our guest today is a transformational coach who helps people break the patterns that hold them back in business and daily life. Her work focuses on behavior, clarity, and mindset. She guides clients through simple yet practical shifts that create real progress fast. Very direct, she doesn't waste time. She helps people see what they are missing so that they can move forward with confidence and focus. And through her coaching and her own podcast, she shows how small behavioral changes lead to major improvements in performance, energy, and results. The listeners meet my incredible guest, Debbie Longo. So, Debbie, welcome to Bizplend, and it's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So Debbie, let's go straight in, no fluff. So let's start with a very blunt one. When you say behavioral profit, it kind of sounds like a very technical, LinkedIn kind of hashtag or buzzword. But what do you mean in simple terms? Like how does leadership behavior actually show up as money or profit in the business, like actual numbers?
Right. So, um, basically, the message that I want to send, and usually everything revolves around this, is get rid of negativity in the workplace. Okay. And everything I do, whether it's negativity or control or, whatever the executive or the business owner does, any negative behavior carries down all the way, trickles down from all the employees right to the janitor. Okay. So I'm not a psychologist. I don't work on psychology. Okay. I don't have any training in any type of those fields. Now, the object is because a lot of people try this. They
Mm.
try therapy or, different things like that, and thinking that, first of all, everybody else is the problem, right? So if I'm an executive or a business owner, my employees are doing this, this, and this, and that's why my company's losing sales and profits. Okay. But
Mm.
really, the object is for the business owner or the executive, whoever runs the company, to look at themselves, to look at their own behavior. What are they doing? And that's what is affecting all of the employees. And that inadvertently will decrease sales and profits. So when I change that behavior of the managers and executives and also all the employees too, right? When we change that behavior, ultimately that's going to increase sales and profits. Okay. That's the ultimate goal. Now, there's a lot of things that happen in between that. Okay. They change their attitude, their outlook on life, that it helps them with their, when they go home, when they talk to friends and family, they're shopping in the store, all different things like this. So it's going to affect them in their whole entire life. And it's the same thing with negative behavior. But the least thing that I want to do, the most important thing that I don't want to do is blame other people for me, my behavior, and my mistakes. Okay. Because if I
Mm,
point the finger, then I'm completely refusing to look at myself, to look at my actions, the things that I have done, the things that, I'm doing and how I'm behaving and how I'm acting. And when that happens, then I can't I can't be helped, you know? I
mm,
mean, it's, like, very, very impossible pretty much, But if I'm willing to say, you know, uh, uh, something is wrong, and I wanna find out what it is, and just to have an open mind, to have somebody tell me, what is going on, why is my business failing, different things like that.
mm. Absolutely makes sense. Like, a lot of questions come to my mind. But one thing which I can definitely kind of, connect with in this, like, somewhere it kind of falls in the spectrum of this, relational intelligence. Until now, we talked about EQ or emotional intelligence in the workplaces. Now there is something called as, and I think it is kind of, there's a deficit in the workplace when it comes to the leadership or even employees as well, relational intelligence. And a lot of work around this starts with the individual first, the person themselves. But now a bit of a pushback here, Debbie. You know, we as humans, we are complex. And when it comes to workplace, now there's a huge misconception when it comes to all these, quote unquote soft skills and discussion around all this, that let's say if I work upon myself and I want to become a better person, I am becoming a better leader. But it's not possible to make sure that, everyone, all the people in my workplace are aligning with a similar kind of, or maybe a specific, value or value system or leadership principle. Because as humans, we are complex. So what would you say to this pushback, Debbie? If a leader says that this is not possible, this doesn't hold any weight when it comes to profits or numbers, it's pure input, output. That's it.
So, yeah, thanks for the question. It's very interesting.
Mm,
Um, like we were saying before, right? The people make the company because if
mm,
there was no people, operating the company, okay, janitors, employees, every single person that works in that company, okay, there
mm,
would be no company, right? There would be nothing functioning at all, okay? So, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to come into alignment with the executives and the employees,
mm,
and then all the employees too, right? So, we're
mm,
trying to come into alignment with all of the people, that
mm,
work in the company, everybody, okay? That because
mm,
everybody's inadvertently working together, okay? Whether it looks like it or not, they are, because they work there, so they're really like everybody is pretty much influencing other people. So, one of the things that we want to try to do is to have number one, have the executive or business owner, whoever it is, I mean, have an open mind, okay? But we want to be able to teach that executive how to work with the employees. So the employees are happy, the employees want to go to work, they have a positive attitude, okay, about going to work, okay? They function at their work. They do a good job, they're motivated, okay, and they have goals. When they come home, they're happy. You know what I mean, they want to be happy when they come home. Okay, so there's a lot of things here, so we don't want to be where the executive or the business owner is just gonna change his behavior. you know and then everybody's gonna be okay with that.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. Okay. Because, like you said, everybody is different. Everybody has different personalities, different behaviors. And we're not trying to change that. We're trying to mainly get rid of the negativity. And you can see that in 100 different forms.
Hmm. Yeah, I really love that answer, Debbie. And I think to all the listeners, if I can, say that especially for anyone who is in the leadership position and who may kind of maybe teeny tiny bit resonate with that and kind of feeling a little bit called out right now, this is not to shame you. I believe it is to show you that the cost of the gap between how you think you show up and then how your team actually experiences you. And I think you know even if we keep a number in mind, let's say the people, the salaries, benefits, the time it takes to replace someone when they leave, if your behavior is driving people away or slowing them down, that is where your profit is quietly disappearing. I believe Debbie will agree with me.
Yes, agreed. Because you know why? Just in that one thing that you said, there's so many examples of this, but just in that one thing, it cost
Mm.
millions to train employees. It costs a lot of money. Okay, not a little bit. Okay, so then nobody knows how to function the business properly. It's completely just out of control. Okay. All those
Mhm.
employees leave, or even half of them leave, right? Oh, I got another job, or, my family member is sick, and, I'm going on a vacation, whatever. Okay. And people just leave. And then what do they got to do now? Now they got to hire a whole bunch more people and train them. And it costs more and more and more money every time they do that. And that
Mhm.
is definitely going to decrease your sales and profits because you're literally throwing money down the drain.
Yeah.
Literally. Okay. Because again, can you see where the problem is in your workplace if you're continuing to point the finger, right? And say it's the employees, then and not have any desire to see how your behavior, how the business owner or the executive is their behavior is affecting their workplace, their employees, their profits, you know, the fact that um they're quitting all the time, all right? And they have to train people again and the people are not being productive enough, all these different things, right? If they can't be open enough to see, is there something that they can do to change their behavior? Okay. Is there something that they can do to become more positive? Okay. Rather than being negative all the time. And there's 100 different examples of this too. All right. Because people don't even realize, okay, what's going
True.
on. Right. They have to be told. So this is the thing. So I want to be able to ask them, can they have an open mind for this?
Absolutely. I think that is that is kind of the by default, the default criteria needed, because until unless you are ready or you have acknowledged and you have that open mind, I think that is the step one to begin with. Definitely. Debbie, one more pushback, now, unfortunately, and I'm not generalizing anything here, but many of the discussions are right now happening around how to kind of, solve this people problem. There are wonderful some AI systems available, maybe through bots and and automations and everything, this kind of complicated issue of managing people can be kind of, removed. What's your thought on this? I mean, I find this kind of like absolutely, I do not agree with it, but I would love to know your thought on this.
Thank you for the question. That's very good. So, my last 3 podcasts were about AI. I mean, I have so many guests. I have a podcast, Behavioral Profit, and I have so many guests on there. And, whoever comes is, I pretty much take anybody if it has to do with, if they qualify or whatever. But that's what's coming up now, right? So this is, and you're asking this question. So the thing is, we don't really know, how this is going to pan out on the long term, right? Because we don't have a lot of history about this, right? So we kind of have to see, it's kind of like a wait and see type thing. But the thing is, any time there's a major change, okay, AI or a recession, okay, or a family member dies or something, or, there's a major life change or something like that. Any major change at all is going to affect everybody, okay? Because if it affects the business owner or whatever, or even the employees, everybody basically feels it, okay? It doesn't matter who it is in the company, right? So if I have new tools, right, like AI, right, or like we used to write on paper, you know what I mean, like the offices, in like the 80s or whatever, then they have computers, right? So these are all major transitions, right? So I want to make sure that I am presenting these new tools because these are big things, right? Because this is now going to allow me, I mean, I know more. I have so many stories about this. I know marketing guys that big companies that what used to take them months to make ads and stuff now take with AI will take them like 2 hours, you know, because they're not doing anything manually, right? So right, so I want to be able to present this AI or like I said whatever tool it is in a positive way where this AI is not going to replace me. It's not gonna take my job away, okay? It's not something where it's gonna take me over, right? And then I'm not gonna have a job, and I'm not gonna be able to do my job properly. That's not what it's doing. It's a tool, and I need to learn how to work with it, okay? And it's helping me to do my job like I just gave you the example with the marketing guys, right? To do my job a lot better. Now, the thing with that is, as a business owner, I want to be able to present it that way, right? In a positive way. Okay. That, this is going to be good for you. It's going to be good for the company. This is going to help you make advances in the company because it's going to make you work like a lot more efficient, than you were. You know what I mean? So and then you might be the business owner is not gonna say this, but, inadvertently, they might be advancing, get promotions, different things like that. Cause hey, it might make you look good, it might make you look a lot better than you did, if you were doing things manually, so I mean, there's a lot of things here, but everything is in the presentation. Okay. How do you present it? That is the main thing because what you do, if you don't present it good and you're negative and you say to the employee, well, I'm not sure. Let's try this. We have this software. It's AI. Well, I'm not sure how it's going to work. I'm not sure if you're going to like it or not, but try it. you know, does that sound very positive? you know, as opposed to, listen, we have this great new software. I wouldn't even say AI. I would say we have this great new software and we want to train everybody on it. And if you're open to it, even give them the choice. Not that they have one, but if you're open to it, I would really like to train you on it, to teach you it, and it's really going to benefit your workplace. What's the difference between those two things that I said?
See difference.
A lot.
See difference because Debbie, you actually hit at the right keyword. Something which I had in mind is, I think, a better investment, instead of spending tons and tons on maybe inducing all the new AI softwares out there, or maybe looking out for employees, because most of my team members are just leaving my company, is training, upskilling not only the employees, but I think in the leadership arena as well. Because, many a times, and I have had so many conversations on this, that when a good performing, the top performing individual contributor is put into that managerial or leadership position, they have no clue. They have no clue about how to, these people managing skills. So they kind of see it as, it kind of becomes like this huge self doubt upon their capabilities, when they are at that position. So I think the keyword here is upskilling and training. And of course, if there is a choice, definitely. Or else, I think the communication is the key here. That as a leader, I would mentor them or guide them that, this will make your 7 days of work in just maybe 2 or 3 hours. And maybe the time that you save, maybe we can put that into solving or looking at different problems out there, interacting with more customers out there, looking at something more creative, which can actually directly result into more profits and more numbers.
Right. I agree totally. I mean, there's so many things, so many examples, so many problems, that we're having now. Like you said, when people get thrown into positions and all different things and they're not trained, they have no idea what they're doing. I mean, this is like so common, because the company, maybe they don't want to spend the money. You know what I mean? Like we were saying, it costs a lot of money to train. Maybe they don't want to spend the money. You know what I mean? Because they know that there's a high turnover rate, right? But why
Mm.
is there a high turnover rate? Because they're not being trained properly, right? Or, who's the manager? We don't even know, right? Who's your boss? You know, we don't even know who the boss is. So this is a big thing, that you're mentioning, because we don't want a workplace or a job or whatever, or a company, to get to that point where they're just throwing people into positions and they have no idea what they're doing. Because, I mean, even if they don't wanna spend the money to train them, they know that they'll be gone in a few weeks,
Mm.
you know?
Mhm.
How can you work at a job like that if you don't know, if you're not trained properly, and that's just right, and that's just one thing. We need to have business owners and executives who are educated, responsible, and know how to get rid of negativity, and know how to be positive and motivate their employees and train their employees properly. That's what we need. Every single company needs to be like that.
Agreed. Agreed. 100%. So Debbie, let's get now very specific. So when you walk into a company, what are the top 2 or 3 leadership behaviors that are the most expensive? The ones that bleed revenue and productivity fast. Like any patterns or any characteristics, something like that.
Well, there's a few. One that I could think of is control.
Hmm.
So the business owner or executive wants to take control of everything. So what happens is, when a business is doing well, people make money, right? Everybody's happy. The executives are happy. The board members, might be happy if the business is on the stock market, the company, their stocks are going up. Everybody's making a lot of money, right? So what happens is sometimes the ego takes over. Okay. And when that happens, then the executives and everybody, they start to be very controlling. Now,
Mm.
when I started a job, okay, I get a contract, okay, or I get a booklet. And in that information is my job duties. It says I work 9 to 5. I work at this location, okay, for this amount of hours, okay, and
Mhm.
this is what I do. right? I go on, I sit at a desk, I sit, I go on a computer, this is what I do, blah, 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 right? It's all very specific, okay? So as an executive, I want to be able to follow that what they signed, that contract that they signed. I want to
Mm.
be able to follow that 100%. So if I ask an employee to stay until 5:05, okay, that is
Mhm.
without and that's outside of their contract because their
Mm.
contract says 9 to 5, okay?
Yeah.
And so now if the employee says yes, then I need to pay them that 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but when the control gets so bad that the manager now or the executive refuses to look at those job duties, okay, and refuses to say, I'm not going to follow them. They're going to go, they're going out the window. Okay, I'm going to throw them right out the
Mhm.
window. Okay,
Mhm.
now it's me. Now the job duties become me, and now I tell everybody what to do. Okay? That is death, immediately death for the company, for the organization, immediately, okay? Because now what the employees thought was their job duties and the hours that they work and, all the things that they do is now completely different. And then maybe every day it changes, whatever the mood of the executive is or whatever, every day it changes. And that's a lose-lose for everybody because people are just going to start quitting. They'll start quitting right away. So that's why I can't have that ego and I have to be able to control my mind and I have to get rid of that control. Okay? Because I have to, yeah, and these are all things that we work on. So I do everything individual. I don't do nothing is, general, you pick your package, you pick what you want to do. That's not how I do it. Okay. I do a whole thing and I make a plan and outline all these different things based tailored to that organization and what their issue is and what are they doing, and who I need to help and all these different things, right? So, this gets a little bit not really complicated, but like detailed,
Mhm.
in depth.
Exactly. I think one thing also which you mentioned is this, mood, the inconsistent patterns here. Like one day, okay, the boss is happy, everything's fine. The other day, the boss is sad or having bad mood or a bad kind of argument with their um, leader, or and everything is like hellbound. And that is something. It's very very mentally, even physically, also very frustrating for all the employees to tackle. Um, Before we wrap up, Debbie, um, one more thing which actually I would like to focus on, something which I have also personally struggled sometimes, is um, especially from a leader or a manager perspective, is having hard conversations. Um, sometimes we have to be very critical, constructively, just regarding the work or the deliverables or the expectations in there. Sometimes, let's say a top performer is performing in numbers, contributing greatly to the revenues, but then in terms of the other aspects, maybe their behavior or the way they are connecting with other team members, it's kind of creating a lot of friction within the team, which is affecting the morale of my entire team. How, as a leader, as a manager, I navigate through those hard conversations?
That's a good question. Thank you very much for
Mm.
the question. It's interesting because sometimes I know that, especially like, let's say the employees are not following their job duties, different things like we're talking about, right?
Mm.
Um, I have to reprimand that employee if
Mm.
they're doing numbers or whatever and they're not meeting up to other standards that the company expects. I have to reprimand that employee, but I want to be able to do that in a positive way.
Mm.
Okay. So a lot of companies, they do like 3 strikes, you're out kind of thing, right? Oh, they take you in, yeah, they take you into the office, it's not gonna be good, right? And then they say, "Okay, you do this, this, and this, and this, and this is all wrong, and then, we're gonna write it up, you're gonna sign it, and don't do it again." Does that sound very positive, Does that sound positive? Does that sound like you're actually gonna help somebody?
No, I
And
think.
what do you think? What do you think's gonna happen? You know? The person's gonna go, they're gonna do the same thing again,
Yeah.
right? So, instead, I could say something like, um, first of all, I probably wouldn't take them into their office, maybe we could go, like, in the break room or something, okay?
Mm.
But if they're comfortable in the office, that's fine. But I would say something like, "So, you know, you start something positive. Your numbers are great.
Mm.
There are so many ways that you help this company." The first sentence should be positive, the first two or three sentences. But, right? And then there's a button there. Okay.
Mm.
But I noticed, just briefly, you know, that there are some things that you might need a little bit extra help on. Okay.
Mm.
And I want to maybe just say these things to you if you're okay with that. And let's just think about, if you think, you know, that
Mm.
that you need extra help. Okay. Or if you think that, this is affecting you in any way. And it is, right? And like, this person's like in big trouble, right? But you're not saying it that way. All right. And I want to know if the employee agrees with what I'm saying, but I'm not going to
Mm.
say that. Right. So then I lay it out, you know. Let's talk about the first thing. All right. You're taking a lot of breaks, whatever. Okay.
Mm.
And then, oh, maybe maybe the person has like a sick daughter or something. Maybe the daughter has like a sickness. She's in the hospital and she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell a boss. And maybe she's running out of the office, every 20 minutes because she's so sick. The doctor and the nurse is calling her on the cell phone every 20 minutes. You have no idea what it could be, and that's a serious thing. And you don't want to talk, in front of the employees and everybody, so that's a serious thing. So we don't really know, what the situation is. We can't assume, and then if it's something like that, that's a serious problem, that employee is going through now, and she's has to deal with working, while she's doing this. Is she going to be focusing 100% on her job? Probably
Mm.
not.
Mm.
you
Mm.
know so this is the thing. So maybe now they need to be taken out of that position and put into another position. But it's all how you present it. And that's
Mm.
what it's all how you talk, how you phrase it. How are you going to help the person? How can I help you? You're my employee. You're my asset. You're the one that gives me my paycheck, basically. All right. How can I help you perform better at work? If you're doing these things, that are without the job duties, or you're abusing part of the job or whatever, taking breaks or whatever, right? How can I help you to make you a better employee, okay, where you can now perform at your greatest level, and then the company will benefit from that. you know so I mean, it's two completely different behaviors, you know, but that's going to be up to the business owner, because this is going to be a big change for them, because they're used to doing it one way, and are they willing to change and do it a different way? And that's a difference between Apple and, a big company and a medium-sized company. Medium-sized company could do the same amount that a big company does. But why
Mm.
don't they do it? Because there's a lot of stuff going on internally, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it, and they have no idea. Maybe they don't even know what's going on. And the bottom line is, this is all going to affect sales and profits. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between, but that's really what the whole thing is. Change your behavior, you'll increase sales and profits for the company.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, Debbie, before we conclude, if listeners they would like to connect with you, maybe they have thoughts to share, some of opinions to share from this conversation, and they would also like to connect with you to explore more about this, what would be the easiest way?
So I have a website. Maybe you could put it on to the information description when you have your podcast. It's called Life in Bloom, LIFEINBLOOMNY for New York .net. Okay, you can key that and it'll come right up. Okay. All my information is on there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Debbie Longo, DEBBIE. First name, last name is Longo, LONGO. Okay, I'm an executive behavioral coach, and I'm also a life coach, which I have been for like over 25 years. And I'm going to be doing a new podcast, which is Life Coach for Anybody. Okay, and then I'm also going to be doing executive, obviously, for business owners and different things. So there's a lot of ways. I mean, on my website, I have my phone number and I have email. I have there's tons of ways of getting in touch with me.
Brilliant, brilliant, Debbie. And listeners, what I'll do, as I always do for all of you, is to have all the links in the show notes. So just refer to them along with this episode on whichever platform you listen to your podcast to. And to our Bizplend community, if today's episode had hit a nerve, I am absolutely sure it does. It's a good sign. It means your next profit increase might come less from a new product line and more from the person you are when you walk into the next meeting. If you found value today, share this with the one leader in your life who needs less hustle advice and more behavioral honesty. And follow us, subscribe to us for more such valuable conversations with incredible guests here on Bizplend. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, and I invite all of you to take care of your people, take responsibility for your patterns. Numbers will follow. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.